do you believe that ethnicity impacts dating?
It does a lot, if I'm being honest, it does a lot. But men and women differently. So I've spoken a little bit about this. I grew up in London, right? I grew up in all different races of men. And I would see a significant difference in the success rate of Black men, Latin men, compared to European, Indian men. Completely different.
When you say success rate, just in terms of...
Access to women.
Oh, interesting.
Access to women is completely different. And when I was younger and I would get approached by all different types of men, there was such a difference in the way that Black men handled rejection compared to a white guy and an Indian guy. And I always said the way they handle rejection is why they do so well. And sorry, this might sound a bit offensive.
No. Actually, let's hear. I really want to hear this.
What I would notice about being around Caribbean or African men is that they would not place their self-esteem on your response to their advances. So you might come up to me and be like, "Hey, you look great. Can I get your number?" And I'll be like, "I'm so sorry, I'm married." And you'd be like, "Have a great day, beautiful girl. Keep walking when you're looking for," and that would be it. He would carry on with his day. She would feel great. He wouldn't even remember her. He'd move on to the next girl, and there's no problem. It's just another day, another conversation. But what I would notice is that there's an intense anxiety amongst different cultures when speaking to a woman. They would pedestalize women. So when she would say no, it'd be like, "Oh, now I'm not going to speak to another girl for months." They're just so anxious around women's responses to what they have to say. And I just thought, if you start to remember that women are a dime a dozen, being nice, and if they reject you, it doesn't reject you. You are still you. So I just remember they handled rejection so differently, and your success rate is how you can handle rejection.
Wow.
Is any truth in that, or am I making this up?
I think there are many people that would say absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I think there are people right now like this.
I think you have to be a woman that's experienced men of different cultures approaching you. Me being my psychology nature would always analyze what made me stop and talk to him and not stop and talk to him when he might be more handsome. Why did I stop and talk to him? And it was the guys that I would stop and talk to and give the time of day is their self-esteem did not depend on my response.
Racial preference when it comes to dating is something that is rarely talked about.
Yes.
But when we ran our matchmaking agency, what I found to be so interesting is that was typically the first thing that we were told.
Wow.
So before we would ask, and this is all across all age, before we would talk about religion, before we would talk about anything, they would say, "I'm interested in someone who's white. I'm interested in someone who's Black. I'm interested." So do you think that racial preference in dating makes you a racist?
No, I don't think so, because whether you admit it or not, you have it. I think everybody has it to some extent. Now, I think for men, their racial preferences have been hijacked by pornography, so it's hard to tell. But I think the average person, when they say they prefer a particular race, usually what they really prefer is an element of being able to be themselves around that person. Sometimes it's the same race. Other times, it might be some English girls that would be really attracted to Black men, but they grew up with some similarity. Maybe it was the music, maybe it was the culture, maybe they grew up in that environment where they were... So their preference is more their values, but values tend to have a color. And as a result, they navigate it through that. Of course, looks and preference does make a difference, but I do think there's a familiarity in values that comes with color that might be the driving force slightly more.